He is Nate, the most ordinary guy you'll ever meet. Every morning he follows a monotonous routine and works all day. He works at the bank, is the first to arrive and the last to leave. His role as the manager's assistant gives him daily humiliation. Nate knows he has the necessary qualities to be the manager, but life is sometimes unfair. He must endure his boss, Nigel, who is even more pathetic than he is. However, all of this is about to change as that morning Nate and Sherry's paths cross. He doesn't know why, but upon seeing Sherry, everything around him fades away. He doesn't hear anything else. He can only focus on her and ends up staring at her too much, almost to discomfort. Once the workday begins, Nate attends to a client whose life is in crisis. This man has just lost his wife after 50 years of marriage and is about to lose his house. Nate, although he's a banker and to advance you need to be ruthless, Nate lacks that malice. He delays some documents until the poor man can get his wife's life insurance. This won't save his business, but it will save his house. Additionally, he will have enough money left to survive for a few years until he comes up with something else. After helping the poor man, Nate goes for a coffee, but he gets distracted by Sherry and spills the hot liquid on his hand. This causes him a nasty burn, but Nate shows no pain, not even a hint of discomfort from his injured hand. Sherry goes to his office to apologize and notices that his burn is worse than it seemed. She offers to make it up to him somehow, maybe by having lunch together. You know, if you like a girl, hurt yourself and blame her. Sherry has some questions for Nate. She hasn't been in the office long and has noticed that he never shares with anyone. He has seen him a few times outside of his work environment, and that makes him even more interested. Sherry invites him to try the apple pie, but he refuses and yells no. Then he apologizes and confesses to a genetic disorder. Doctors call it CPA, meaning congenital insensitivity to pain. Basically, he doesn't feel pain or temperature changes. This has made him more cautious. He hasn't eaten solids since he almost bit his tongue. This is a new fear for Sherry. Nate is almost a superhero. But this disorder hides many problems, which requires a rather extreme lifestyle. Sherry begs him to try the pie and promises to let him know if she sees any drop of blood or if he bites his toe. For Nate, it's the first time he's eaten solid food since he was a teenager. He just discovered what apple pie tastes like and he's in shock. That night, Nate tells his internet friend about lunch with Sherry. His friend advises him to take a risk as he's a loser playing video games on Saturday night. How bad could it go? So he takes a chance and attends an art show Sherry invited him to. Then they have fun, and thanks to Nate, she sells her first painting. While they celebrate with a drink, a guy shows up and calls Nate Novocaine, just like the name of the movie. This guy used to be his tormentor in school and is still as idiotic as before, but at least now he doesn't hit him. Suddenly, his watch beeps and Ned gets up to go to the bathroom. Sherry asks him why his watch tells him when to urinate, and Nate reveals that he doesn't feel the need, so he has to do it every 3 hours or he might wet his pants. When Nate comes out of the bathroom, his former bully is flirting with the girl he likes. Sherry orders 2 hell drinks and asks both of them to leave the past behind. Nate takes the drink and feels nothing, but the bully starts coughing and his throat burns. Nothing better to win a guy's heart than humiliating his bully. Then, Sherry asks him to take her home. There she finds out Nate reads a lot, especially medicine and history. He has been injured on several occasions and hospitals are expensive, so he has had to treat himself. In his adolescence, he became a bit obsessed with tattoos, and since he didn't have money, he did them himself. His tattoos tell the story of his life, but as if he were a medieval knight, although his chest remains blank, as that is where the maiden who never appeared would go. While Sherry takes off her clothes, Nate realizes that he can feel some things he didn't know. However, he notices that she also has many marks on her body, especially scars from her tough childhood. The next morning, Nate's routine goes down the drain. He's as happy as a clam and determined to experience everything before it's too late. In the office, he spends 1 hour thinking about what to say to Sherry when he sees her, but Santa Claus interrupts the workday. 4 armed men enter the bank and subdue everyone. Nigel refuses to open the vault and is brutally beaten. The thief who hits him drops his beard, and Nigel sees his face, which leads to him being executed to cover their tracks. The alarm goes off and the thieves have less than 3 minutes before the police arrive. They hit Nate to get the information, but he doesn't feel anything if. However, Sherry defends him and the thief takes advantage of their relationship to threaten her and demand the combination to the safe. Nate provides them with the combination and the thieves enter the vault. However, to escape, they take Sherry as a hostage. When Nate wakes up, Sherry is gone and the robbers confront the police with high-caliber weapons. This gives them an advantage and several officers end up dead. Nate helped an injured officer and upon learning that reinforcements will arrive in 8 minutes, decides to act. After stealing a patrol car, he chases the thieves, unafraid to open fire in the street. The thieves split up and Nate follows the car that doesn't take him. Sherry corners Ben and points a gun at him. Exploiting his inexperience, Ben attacks her and takes the gun. Nate hides in a kitchen and attacks him with a hot pan. No matter how hard Ben hits Nate, he doesn't give up. It's one of those situations where his genetic disorder comes in handy. The weapon ends up in a deep fryer and only one of them can get it out of the... Lucky for us, that's our protagonist. Ben dies and Nate is left without a clue as to where Sherry might be. Luckily, Ben had a phone and it just rang. Nate calls Roscoe, needing help to find the address Ben was heading to. At least he has half the money, which will help him negotiate. Back at the scene, Detective Minzy learns what Nate did. However, she's still unsure if he's a crazy lover or a gang member who betrayed them. In Nate's case, he goes to Earl, the old man he helped before, for help. He has a bullet in his shoulder and needs to remove it before it worsens. Nate removes the bullet without feeling pain, then seals the wound with glue and is ready to continue the search. Before leaving, he gives a couple of bundles to Earl, who really needs the money to keep his business from going under. Roscoe does his part and sends the address that Nate needs. Minzy gets to the kitchen and they find Ben Coltrane's body. Her partner gives her Nate's profile and she tries to contact him. Against all odds, Nate answers the phone and explains the situation to them. He's not with the thieves, just wants to save Sherry, the only girl who gave his life meaning. Minzy asks him to surrender, but Nate insists he won't give up until he saves Sherry. In the thieves' hideout, Simon, the leader, is worried about the money and Ben not returning. Andre, Ben's brother, swears if anything happens to his brother, he'll lose more than money. Their discussion is interrupted by Sherry, who in an unexpected twist turns out to be part of the She Gang. Sherry is furious. Simon promised that no one would get hurt, but tell that to Nigel. Back in action, Nate arrives with the thieves' contact, but he is caught checking their files and a fight breaks out. The guy is 3 times his weight and muscle, throws Nate like he's nothing against a large glass, but he takes advantage of that. Starts hitting the glass until his hands are completely embedded and gets ready to fight. That is creative. Let's hope he doesn't need a manicure afterward. Each blow Nate lands on the giant carries the crystal's damage until he blinds him completely. Finally, the giant confesses and reveals where his companions are hiding. Shortly after, Nate arrives at a house on the outskirts. It seems abandoned, but he has no choice. He must enter and look for any clue that might help him. As Aberamagnese, the house is empty, but it hides several traps, and Nate finds out the hard way. Finally, he finds the workshop where Ben works. It looks like a hideout for thieves, but he forgets the traps and ends up upside down. After a while, the blood starts to rush to his head, so he calls Roscoe. He needs him to help or he'll die there. Unfortunately for him, Andre arrives at the house looking for Ben and realizing the traps are activated. Andre recognizes Nate, and a few seconds later, Simon calls him to inform him that the police have reported Ben's death and his killer is a skinny guy wearing a suit. Right behind him is that same skinny guy hanging upside down. Andre wants Nate to suffer for killing his brother, so after lowering him and tying him to a chair, Nate has to pretend that the torture is working. Come on, Nate, you can pretend better than that. Andre pulls out his nails, though it hurts us just to watch. For Nate, this is nothing. Next, he plans to gouge out his eyes. But that would be problematic. How can you save the girl if you can't see her? Luckily, Roscoe arrives just in time and knocks out Andre at the last second. However, once freed, Andre wakes up and the fight breaks. Nate is no match for Andre. He's a trained soldier, but not feeling pain has its benefits. Like being able to pull an arrow out of your leg and use it to kill someone. Minzy arrives at the house planning to arrest Nate, but he runs off and steals Roscoe's scooter. Before Minzy can catch him, it turns out they had switched outfits and Roscoe was just a distraction. Now looking like a badass, it's time to go to the workshop and save the girl. Nate arrives just in time to save Sherry, but Simon mocks him since her knight in shining armor doesn't know she's an accomplice. With this revelation, Nate's world crumbles and Simon seizes the chance to attack and take his weapon. Sherry betrays her brother and he aims at her head. He has no issue killing her, but he planned to do it anyway. Just as he was about to pull the trigger, a bullet pierces his chest. A shot from Coltrane, who finally proves to be useful. Missy arrives and places Sherry under arrest. Nate is severely injured. He can't even stand up. His nerves and muscles are torn, and he needs urgent medical attention. When everything seems to be over, Simon wakes up and shoots the officers. Then he tries to kill Sherry, but she escapes, and he steals the ambulance where Nate was placed for treatment. Minzy is injured, but Sherry is not and must drive to catch the ambulance. Nate is handcuffed to the stretcher, and Simon tries to take his gun to shoot him. Sherry knows her brother is heading to the docks, where his escape boat is. However, Nate is not defeated yet and still has something to use. Using the electroshock machine, Nate discharges the entire charge directly into Simon's face. During the final fight, Simon tears off Nate's burned hand, exposing the bone. Sherry appears and shoots him, but fails to hit a vital point, and Simon attacks her. On the ground, Nate spots an adrenaline syringe and uses it, allowing him to get up and surprise Simon from behind. Nate's wounds are too many. With an "I love you," he says goodbye to Sherry and then loses consciousness. Luckily, if you don't feel pain, you don't know when to die, and doctors save your life. Minzy has also been saved and tells Nate he's facing many charges, but since he saved 2 officers, he'll only serve 6 months of house arrest. With a leap in time, a year has already passed and Nate is with Sherry. He wants to show her his finished tattoo. He has already found the maiden of his story. You just need to wait 8 more months for his sentence to be completed and for you to be together. Now click on another video or you'll have a torture session with Andre. And you, do you